Hojicha versus matcha is a comparison people often make, as these are the two more well-known types of Japanese green teas. In this video, we're going to be looking at all the differences between matcha versus hojicha. We'll talk about the difference between hojicha and matcha, hojicha versus matcha taste, hojicha versus matcha benefits, and we'll even let you know what we think might be right for you, matcha or hojicha. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for future tea videos. We have hundreds of videos on all sorts of topics related to Japanese green tea, but for this episode, we're going to focus on hojicha versus matcha specifically. Without further ado, let's get started. The difference between hojicha and matcha. The most obvious difference between matcha and hojicha is that matcha is powdered and hojicha is in loose leaf form. This will lead to many differences which we will discuss later, but it's important to keep that in mind for now. Another difference between matcha versus hojicha is that hojicha is roasted and matcha is unroasted. The roasting process brings out different flavors and it can change the color of the tea. For this reason, matcha is a bright, vibrant green color and hojicha is light to dark brown. The final difference between matcha and hojicha is the fact that matcha is made from the youngest sprouts of the tea plant, whereas hojicha is usually made from older, more mature tea leaves. When you dive into the world of Japanese green tea, you will learn that how the tea is harvested can greatly affect what type of tea is being produced. Let's talk about the hojicha and matcha similarities. The most obvious similarity between hojicha and matcha is that they are both types of teas. This means that they come from the same plant, Camellia sinensis. All true teas must come from this tea plant, otherwise they are not considered to be a true tea. Furthermore, both hojicha and matcha are produced in Japan. These are Japanese teas, with the name hojicha referring to roasted tea and the word matcha referring to ground tea. Now let's talk about the taste of these two teas. Probably the biggest difference between hojicha and matcha has to do with the taste. The flavor of hojicha is really strong on these notes of caramel, chocolate, and coffee, which of course comes from the roasting process. The flavors of matcha could not be more different, with more of these steamed vegetable flavors along with a milky finish and a thicker mouthfeel. Now let's talk about the hojicha versus matcha health benefits. Hojicha is still a healthy tea, but matcha is the real nutrient powerhouse. Most of this is due to the fact that when you grind up the tea leaf and mix it directly into water, you're consuming the entire leaf. When you infuse leaf teas, on the other hand, you're getting just a small piece of the water-soluble compounds. Matcha is also shaded for a long time, giving it more theanine, and it's made from younger leaves, which tend to be higher in nutrients. When you compare the caffeine content of hojicha versus matcha, you will find that hojicha comes up short. This has to do with a number of different factors, like the fact that it's made from older leaves, it's not shaded, and it has the roasting process, which removes some of the caffeine. Matcha has 68 milligrams of caffeine per cup if you use 2 grams of powder, and hojicha can have as little as 10 milligrams of caffeine per cup. Now let's talk about the lattes. Comparing a hojicha latte versus a matcha latte can bring up a number of different similarities. These two drinks are both quite popular, with the matcha latte receiving international fame. To make a hojicha latte, you will have to use the powdered form of hojicha, which will mix much more evenly into the oat milk and give the tea a much richer flavor. So what's the difference between roasted matcha and hojicha powder? In theory, if you were to compare roasted matcha versus hojicha powder, the flavors would be very different, but you will never find such a thing. So much work goes into producing matcha when it comes to the shading, the harvesting, removing the stems, and the grinding. All of this is to produce a smooth, vegetal, and naturally sweet taste. To roast this tea would be to undo a lot of hard work, and that's why if you make a hojicha latte, you should simply use hojicha powder. So which one should you choose, matcha or hojicha? If you're sensitive to caffeine and you prefer more of these warming and soothing flavors, we recommend you go for hojicha tea. We have a great lightly roasted hojicha tea from Mr. Noike in Kyoto that is extremely popular. Because this tea is grown on a small plot of land in the middle of a pine forest, it's partially shaded throughout the day and therefore it develops a natural sweetness to it. If you're interested in these more grassy or vegetal flavors and you want a tea that can really wake you up in the morning, we recommend that you go for a matcha. The best matcha for beginners is also from Mr. Noike. It's called the Noike matcha and it's made from the Okumidori cultivar, which gives it a natural, smooth flavor. You can try out both of these teas and let us know which one you like better. When you order tea from us, you're not only helping to support this channel, you're also helping us to support the dozens of talented farmers we work with all around Japan. We believe that by sharing these farmers' stories and their teas with people all around the world, we can help to transition the tea industry into a more positive, sustainable direction. If you have any questions about green tea, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. But until then, we'll see you next time.